There's a certain kind of power in walking away so cleanly, so completely, that it feels like you never even knew him. Not because the relationship didn't matter at the time, but because you've decided it won't matter anymore. Most people leave breadcrumbs, a message here, a like there, a conversation they hope will keep the door cracked open. But when you truly value yourself, you don't leave breadcrumbs, you leave nothing. You don't try to prove your worth by staying visible, you prove it by disappearing. And that's the kind of exit that shifts the balance, the one where he suddenly realizes that the space you filled can't be replicated, and the silence you left behind is deafening. This isn't about games, it's about dignity. It's about leaving his world in such a way that he can never re-enter yours. Because the truth is, the strongest move you can ever make is not showing him what he lost, it's becoming someone he'll never have access to again. Silence is one of the most underrated forms of power. When you've been hurt or undervalued, your first instinct may be to explain yourself, to demand answers, to make him see what he's done. You think that by speaking, by spelling it out, you'll gain some kind of closure or validation. But here's the truth. Words rarely change someone who didn't value you in the first place. The more you explain, the more you chase. The more you pour out your heart, the smaller you feel. That's why silence is so powerful. It removes the stage, it removes the audience, and it removes the opportunity for him to keep taking from you. When you go silent, you send a message louder than any speech could. You show him you don't need to argue, you don't need to convince, and you don't need him to acknowledge your worth. Your silence says, I've already decided, I've already chosen myself, and nothing you say will change that. That kind of quiet confidence is far more unsettling to someone than tears or anger. Tears tell him he still has an effect on you. Anger tells him you're still engaged with him, but silence tells him he no longer matters. Think about it. Silence is the one thing people can't argue with. If you send him a long message, he can dismiss it, twist it, or ignore it. If you beg for answers, he can withhold them. But if you disappear, if you say nothing, he has no control. He can't twist your words, he can't feed off your reaction, and he can't soothe his ego with your attention. He's left alone with the silence you created, and in that silence, he's forced to confront himself. That's why silence is louder than words, because it doesn't give him an escape route. Of course, going silent isn't easy. It feels unnatural to walk away without saying everything you want to say. Your heart aches to express itself, to let him know how much he hurt you, to get some kind of acknowledgement. But ask yourself this, what's more valuable, him hearing your pain or you protecting your peace? Because one drains you while the other restores you. Silence isn't about denying your feelings, it's about channeling them into something more productive than trying to change a man who's already shown you he won't change. And let's be honest, part of why silence stings so much for him is because it flips the script. If he's used to your messages, your calls, your emotional investment, the sudden absence is shocking. He may expect anger, he may expect tears, but he doesn't expect indifference. When you stop speaking, stop reacting, stop showing up, you disrupt his sense of control. That silence unsettles him more than any words you could ever say, because now he's the one wondering. He's the one checking his phone, questioning himself, feeling the emptiness where your energy used to be. But here's the key, your silence isn't for him, it's for you. It's not about manipulating his feelings, it's about reclaiming your own. Silence creates space for healing. It gives you the distance you need to see things clearly. It stops you from feeding into a cycle that only prolongs your pain. It allows you to shift your focus away from him and back onto yourself. That's why silence is power. It redirects the energy you've been giving away and brings it back to where it belongs, with you. So when you leave his world, leave without noise. Don't announce it, don't justify it, don't perform it. Just go quiet, because silence isn't empty, it's full of strength, full of dignity, full of the message that you don't owe him another word. And that will echo louder in his world than anything you could ever say. In today's world, your presence isn't just physical, it's digital. And often, even after a breakup, people stay connected through little online threads. Maybe it's an Instagram follow, a WhatsApp chat history, a photo album on Facebook, or even just your name sitting in his contact list. These digital traces become invisible strings that keep pulling you back into his world, whether you realize it or not. Every time you see his updates, every time you scroll past his name, every time you resist the urge to check his profile, you're reopening a door you were meant to close. That's why erasing your digital footprints is essential if you want to leave his world as if you never knew him. The truth is, leaving him online is leaving him access. Even if you're not speaking, he can still peek into your life, still see your photos, still monitor your energy. And as long as he has that access, he can feel a sense of comfort that you're still there, still visible, still reachable. That comfort is the opposite of the silence you want to create. If he gets to see your moves, he never has to feel the true weight of losing you. But when you cut off every trace, when he goes searching and finds nothing, that's when the absence hits him. That's when he realizes you're gone, not just in person, but in every space he thought he could still hold on to you. Deleting and blocking may feel harsh at first. You might tell yourself it's too extreme, or that it looks petty, or that it proves you still care. But the reality is, it's not about him at all, it's about protecting your own peace. Why should you leave open doors for temptation, reminders, or late-night curiosity? Why keep an archive of pain sitting in your pocket, waiting to be reopened at 2 a.m.? Erasing your digital footprints is not about revenge, it's about self-respect. It's a clean break, a way of telling yourself, I'm not going back there, and I'm not keeping any souvenirs. Think of it this way. If you moved to a new house, you wouldn't leave the front door of the old one unlocked just in case you wanted to wander back. You'd close it, lock it, and throw away the key. Social media, old photos, saved texts, those are all unlocked doors to the past. If you truly want to move forward, you can't keep leaving ways to slip backward. Removing those traces is how you lock the door and finally walk into a new chapter without dragging him along behind you. And here's the surprising part. When you erase your digital footprints, you don't just free yourself, you also send a silent message that hits deeper than words. He'll go looking, expecting to see you, expecting to still have that thread, and instead he'll find emptiness. That emptiness will speak volumes. It tells him that you're no longer available, no longer waiting, no longer leaving him the privilege of watching your life unfold. And nothing pricks an ego like realizing they've been cut off completely, that they no longer have even the smallest access to you. But again, this isn't about his ego, it's about your energy. Every click, every scroll, every peek at his updates keeps you tied to him. When you cut it off, you create space for yourself. You stop feeding your mind with reminders, you stop giving him free rent in your thoughts, and you start building new habits that don't revolve around him. It's not just about what you're removing, it's about what you're making room for. You're making room for peace, for healing, for new beginnings. Leaving his world as if you never knew him means leaving no trace, not in your life, not in his, and not online. It's about being unavailable in every sense, so that when he looks for you, he doesn't just see less of you, he sees nothing. And that nothing is the most powerful presence you can ever leave behind. When you want to leave his world as if you never knew him, one of the most crucial steps is withdrawing your energy completely. Energy is invisible, but it's felt. It's in the attention you give, the time you offer, the messages you send, the way you show up for someone. Even when you're no longer officially together, If you're still responding to his late-night texts, still checking his updates, still entertaining conversations, you're feeding him with your energy. And that's what keeps him tethered to you. Your energy was his fuel, and as long as you keep handing it over, he'll keep taking it not because he deserves it, but because it's convenient for him. What most people don't realize is that emotional access is just as powerful as physical access. You may think, we don't see each other anymore, so I've already left him. But if you're still his sounding board, still his comfort zone, still the person who reassures him when things go wrong, then you haven't really left. You've just shifted roles. You've gone from being his partner to being his backup. And that's not freedom, that's another form of captivity. Withdrawing your energy means cutting off that supply completely. It means refusing to be the safe place he runs to when it suits him, while leaving you empty when it doesn't. This doesn't only apply to communication with him, it also applies to the way you spend your own mental energy. Thinking about him constantly, replaying memories, writing texts you never send, stalking his online activity, all of that is energy. Energy wasted on someone who is no longer in your life, and that's the trap. Even if you're not speaking, you may still be giving him space in your head and heart every single day. That's why withdrawal has to be intentional. You stop letting him live rent-free in your thoughts. You take back that energy and redirect it to yourself, to your healing, to your growth. When you finally cut off that energy, two things happen. First, he feels it. He may not admit it, but he notices. The texts go unanswered, the calls don't connect, the conversations never start. The supply he's so used to tapping into dries up. That absence is deafening because it forces him to realize that the access he thought he'd always have is gone. The second thing that happens is even more important. You feel it. Suddenly you have more space, more clarity, more energy to invest in things that actually serve you. You realize how much of yourself you were pouring into someone who didn't pour back. And that realization is freeing. Of course, he may test you. When he notices your energy is gone, he may try to pull you back. A casual message, a memory dropped into conversation, a sudden surge of attention. It's all designed to see if you'll give your energy again. And this is where your strength is tested. Because if you fall back into the cycle, you teach him that your energy is still his whenever he wants it. But if you hold the line, if you refuse to give what you've already reclaimed, you teach him the most important lesson, that your energy is precious, and once withdrawn, it is not easily earned back. Withdrawing your energy completely is not an act of cruelty, it's an act of self-respect. It's the recognition that the attention, care, and love you give are valuable, and they shouldn't be wasted on someone who can't appreciate them. It's not about punishing him, it's about liberating yourself. Because the moment you stop fueling his world, you start fueling your own. And that's when you truly begin to leave as if you never knew him, not with noise, not with drama, but with the quiet power of taking back everything he once took for granted. Rebuilding without his shadow is one of the most powerful moves you can make after walking away, because what often happens after a breakup is that your life still feels like it belongs to him. Your routines remind you of him. Your favorite spots remind you of him. Even your quiet moments carry an echo of his presence. It feels like no matter how far you try to move forward, he's still trailing behind you like a shadow. And if you're not careful, that shadow becomes the thing that stops you from truly living again. To leave his world as if you never knew him, you can't just rebuild, you have to rebuild in a way that removes every trace of him from the foundation of your new life. The first step is to take back your routines. Think about how much of your day used to revolve around him, texting when you woke up, waiting for his call on your way home, planning weekends around his schedule. Those little rituals keep his presence alive long after he's gone. If you want to rebuild without his shadow, you need to replace those habits with new ones. Start your mornings differently. Fill your evenings with something you've always wanted to try. Build weekends that excite you, not ones that remind you of what you've lost. The more new patterns you create, the less space there is for old associations to haunt you. Rebuilding also means redefining your environment. If your space is full of reminders, gifts he gave you, photos, clothes, or even playlists, then you're still inviting his energy into your present. Clearing those things out isn't petty, it's necessary. You wouldn't keep souvenirs from a bad dream and hang them on your wall, so why keep tokens of someone you're trying to forget? Every time you let go of an object that carries his presence, you're removing another piece of his shadow. And as your space becomes yours again, you start to feel free in ways you didn't realize you needed. But the most important part of rebuilding without his shadow is filling your life with new meaning. This is where you turn the pain into fuel. What did you put on hold for him? What dreams, passions, or friendships were left neglected because you were too consumed with him? Now is the time to revive them. Join the class you always wanted to take. Travel to the place you kept postponing. Reconnect with people who remind you of your strength. Each step forward is like painting over the canvas where his shadow once loomed. Soon, it's not even visible anymore because your new colors are so much brighter. And here's the beauty of it: the more you invest in yourself, the less you even think about him. His shadow shrinks when your light grows. When you're busy building a life that excites you, you stop looking over your shoulder. You stop checking to see if he's still there. You stop measuring your happiness against his absence. Because your world is now so full that there's no room for him to sneak back in. Rebuilding without his shadow also sends a quiet but powerful message to him, even if he never hears from you again. He might expect you to struggle, to linger, to keep him in your orbit, but when you rebuild with strength, with joy, with purpose, you prove that his departure didn't break you, it freed you. And nothing unsettles someone more than realizing the life they thought would crumble without them is actually thriving. To leave his world as if you never knew him, you must create a life so rich, so vibrant, and so deeply your own that he can't exist in it anymore. His shadow disappears not because you fought it, but because you built something too strong, too beautiful, and too full of light for it to survive. And that's the ultimate form of moving on, not erasing him by force, but outgrowing him so completely that he no longer has a place in your story. No revenge, just indifference. It sounds simple, but it's actually one of the most powerful forms of freedom you can give yourself. After someone has hurt you or undervalued you, the instinct is often to show them what they've lost. You want them to see you thriving, to regret their choices, to feel the sting of your absence. But here's the truth: the more you focus on trying to hurt him back or prove something to him, the more energy you're still giving him. Revenge keeps you tied to him because your actions are still about him. Indifference, on the other hand, is where your real power lies. Indifference says, "You don't matter anymore. My life has moved on, with or without you." When you choose indifference over revenge, you strip him of the privilege of affecting you. Because as long as you're angry, as long as you're plotting ways to make him jealous, as long as you're obsessing over whether he notices you, he still has power. Anger is still energy, and even though it feels stronger than sadness, it's still rooted in him. Indifference, however, is different. It's not pretending you don't care while secretly burning inside. It's truly reaching a point where you don't need him to feel anything, not your sadness, not your rage, not even your success. That's what bruises an ego more than anything else, realizing that your world continues to spin perfectly without them at the center. Indifference isn't about coldness or cruelty. It's about neutrality. Imagine walking past him the way you would a stranger. Not with venom in your eyes, not with longing, but with nothing. That nothingness is deafening, because people can handle being hated. Hate is still attention. But being invisible, that's harder to swallow. When someone who used to pour all of their energy into you suddenly treats you as irrelevant, it shakes their sense of importance. And that is the kind of quiet revenge that requires no effort, no plotting, and no words. The beauty of indifference is that it shifts the focus back to you. Instead of asking, "How do I make him regret?" you start asking, "How do I make myself happy?" Instead of spending hours crafting a version of yourself for him to see, you spend hours building the version of yourself that makes you proud. Revenge makes your story about him. Indifference makes your story about you. And in that shift, you regain your power. Of course, getting to indifference takes discipline. It means resisting the urge to check his updates, to compare your life to his, to measure your healing by his reaction. It means letting go of the fantasy that one day he'll come crawling back with regret written all over his face. You don't need that moment because your closure doesn't come from him. It comes from knowing you walked away with dignity and never looked back. And here's what usually happens. The moment you truly stop caring is the moment he starts noticing. Not because you planned it that way, but because energy never lies. When you're genuinely indifferent, you stop performing. You stop posting things to get his attention. You stop sending messages, even subtly, that you're still watching. You just live, and in that living you create a silence he can't ignore. He might wonder, he might test, he might try to reappear. But by then, your indifference will protect you from falling back into the trap. So don't waste your time crafting revenge plots or hoping he sees your glow up. Live your life so fully that whether he notices or not becomes irrelevant. Indifference is not about making him hurt. It's about reaching the place where his existence no longer affects your peace. And when you reach that place, you've not only left his world as if you never knew him, you've proven that your world is bigger, brighter, and completely untouched by his absence. That is the ultimate win. Transforming the ending into your new beginning is the ultimate way to leave his world as if you never knew him. So often, people treat the end of a relationship as a failure, as if everything that came before was wasted time. They replay the pain, the disappointment, the what-ifs, and it becomes a heavy burden they carry forward. But what if, instead of treating the ending as something that broke you, you treated it as the very thing that set you free? What if, instead of labeling it the worst chapter, you reframed it as the doorway to the life you were always meant to build? That shift in perspective changes everything. The truth is, every ending holds an opportunity. Relationships, especially the ones that don't last, teach you what you want, what you need, and what you will no longer accept. They sharpen your awareness of yourself, your standards, and your strength. If he couldn't give you consistency, now you know the value of stability. If he disrespected your boundaries, now you know the importance of protecting them. If he failed to see your worth, now you know never to dim your light again. The pain might feel like destruction, but really, it's instruction. And when you use that instruction to build a new beginning, you ensure the ending wasn't a loss, but a lesson. This transformation starts with mindset. If you hold onto the belief that he took something from you, you'll keep living in the shadow of what's gone. But if you see the ending as something that gave you back to yourself, you'll realize you haven't lost. You've gained. You've gained clarity, freedom, resilience, and the chance to rebuild without compromise. You're not starting from scratch, you're starting from experience. That experience, however painful, is the foundation of your new chapter. The next step is action. A new beginning doesn't just happen, you create it. And that means redirecting the energy you used to spend on him toward yourself. Take the love you poured into him and pour it into your passions. Take the time you gave away and reinvest it in your goals. Take the care you lavished on him and give it to your health, your friendships, your dreams. In doing so, you flip the narrative. Instead of the breakup being the thing that broke you, it becomes the thing that built you. He might have been the catalyst, but you're the one who does the creating. And don't underestimate the power of identity in this transformation. Too many people allow the title of X to define them, but you are not just someone's ex. You are not the person left behind. You are not the broken heart. You are the person who used the ending as fuel. You are the person who took pain and turned it into purpose. You are the person who closed one chapter and stepped into another with more courage, more wisdom, and more strength than you ever thought possible. That identity is yours to claim, and once you do, his role in your story becomes smaller and smaller until it no longer matters. The beauty of transforming an ending into a beginning is that it doesn't just erase him, it elevates you. Instead of proving something to him, you prove something to yourself, that you can survive, you can thrive, and you can rise from the ashes of what burned you. And when you live that truth, you don't just leave his world as if you never knew him. You create a world so extraordinary that he could never belong in it anyway. That is the real power of walking away, not just closing the book, but writing a better one that has no trace of his name. When you choose to leave his world as if you never knew him, you're not erasing your past, you're reclaiming your future. You're making a statement that says, I am no longer defined by who I loved or who failed to love me back. I am defined by the life I choose to build now. That's not bitterness, that's power. It's not about punishing him, it's about elevating yourself. And the ultimate freedom comes when you no longer need him to notice, to regret, or to return, because you've already moved so far ahead that he couldn't catch up even if he tried. So let him wonder, let him sit with the silence you left behind, let him face the reality that the door he once had access to is locked forever. Meanwhile, you rise, you grow, you expand into the version of yourself who doesn't look back. That's the legacy of walking away clean. He becomes irrelevant, and you become unstoppable. And when you master that, you never just survive heartbreak. You transform it into the fire that builds the life you always deserved.